Welcome everybody. My name is Vial Tolentino. I am the Recruitment and Admissions Coordinator here at OISE. Welcome to our first recruitment event like this called Breaking Ground, Exploring the Future with your OISE Master of Education. So tonight we have some OISE alumni who will be talking about their career journeys. It's also an opportunity for you to discuss with them and ask questions. So just a couple of things to make sure that we're going to go through for a second. 1 second. Sorry, I just have to get my bearings on. So just a couple of housekeeping things. We want to make sure to ask your questions, raise your hand. There's a raise your hand function on Zoom as well. So if you would like to ask the question live, please be sure to raise your hand. Or if you would like to, if you prefer to, if you're a little bit shy, type it in the Q&A chat and we will answer it live. This, just to make note as well, this session will be recorded. So if you do miss a portion of the session, not to worry, we will be sending the recording shortly after our event today. We also have just a couple of, there's just a thing to keep in mind. It is a Q&A session. So remember, this is your event and you have the opportunity to ask the questions that you want answered. So just, you know, I really do encourage you to really engage with our panelists tonight and to really ask the questions that you want to be answered. And our panelists will do their best to make sure that your questions are answered. There may be questions, we might run out of time tonight, but we'll do our best to answer those questions. So let's get started. Before we do that though, I would like to do our land acknowledgement. Where did that go? Okay. My thing is not working today, not working properly today, but I would like to acknowledge our, sorry about that, just 1 second. Sorry. Our land acknowledgement for tonight. So we are the University of Toronto is situated on the Mississauga, the land of original territories of the Mississauga, sorry, let's start this over again. The Mississaugas of the Credit, sorry, 1 second. I have to just pull this up because I want to make sure that my language acknowledgement is meaningful and intentional as well. And for some reason, my PowerPoint is not working with me tonight. So I would like to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live, to work, and to live on this land. So tonight, this is our land acknowledgement, and then now we're going to move forward over to our panel, our Q&A panel. I'd like to introduce to you tonight our panelists. We do have a panelist missing, but hopefully he'll be able to join us in a little bit. So tonight we have Sarah Salya, who is a graduate from the MEd Higher Education program in 2020. Sarah is the Executive Director for the Newcomer Women's Services. We also have Ulrika Job, who graduated from the MEd Developmental Psychology and Education program in 2020. Ulrika is now the Child and Family Counselor for Connected Parenting. We have Mohammed Salya, who may or may not join us tonight. He graduated for the MEd Adult Education and Community Development Program in 2013. Mohammed is now the Director of Continuing Studies for the Michener Institute of Education at UHN, and is currently an OISE PhD candidate. We also have Marcus Singleton, who is the MEd Social Justice Education graduate in 2020. Marcus is a hip hop artist and educator and is also a current OISE PhD candidate in social justice education. And then we also have, last but not least, we have Emerald Saunders Ndow, who graduated with the MEd Adult Education and Community Development Program in 2013. Emerald is now the partner and the EDI lead for the Knightsbridge Robertson Surrett firm. So welcome to all the panelists. I am looking forward to hearing your stories tonight. So let's take the time before we begin. I would love for the panelists to introduce themselves, so a brief introduction, as well as let me know what you're looking forward to this week. And then we will start with our panel Q&A section after. I will pick Emerald to go first.
Oh, how lucky am I? Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Viel. Thank you for including me in this really important conversation about the meaning and value of an OISE education. I've certainly found it very valuable since I received it on November 13th, 2013. So as Viel said, my name's Emerald Saunders Ndow, and I graduated from OISE, almost 9 years ago. At the time, I was working in a role at the Scarborough campus of U of T. I was the director of the principal's office. It was an inaugural role, and I had an undergraduate degree, Bachelor of Applied Arts in Journalism from the newly named Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly Ryerson. And I've been, moving ahead in, senior roles of responsibility. And my supervisor at the time said if I wanted to propel my career even further, a graduate degree would be really important. And it was a benefit of the university. And so I looked around at my options and spoke to other colleagues who spoke glowingly about the MEd degree from OISE. It offered a lot of flexibility. I had young children at the time, so I needed to figure out how to continue to work full-time, as well as being a full-time mother and contemplating going back to school for the first time in, I think it was like 25 years. The MED program, I did it on a part-time basis. It took 3 years, 10 courses, and I was happy to cross that stage in the fall evening 2013. So it has paid dividends for me. It certainly helped me in my career trajectory, and I certainly, welcome it. What am I looking forward to this week? Friday.
Me too. Awesome. Thanks, Emerald. I will go with Ulrika.
Important to remember to unmute before we start talking. So good evening, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here and share my story, and hopefully something that you find inspiring or something that you take away tonight with you in the future. So my story is a little bit interesting. It's a little bit different than sort of the typical trajectory of people going through school and going to do their masters, etc. So I essentially, very similar to Emerald, when you said 25 years, I was counting in my head. I was like, yeah, it was almost 25 years. So I spent the first half of my career life, if you will, as a fundraiser. So most recently, I'd spent 13 years at the Royal Ontario Museum, which pretty much made my commute exactly the same when I ended up going to OISE. So it was quite funny. But I spent that first half of my career raising money and loving it. But I was starting to kind of feel that as I entered my 40s, I was thinking, do I want to do this for the rest? I loved it. It wasn't a matter of me leaving my career because I was unhappy or I felt like I was needing something different. I just really wanted to explore sort of my original degree was in psychology and family science, and I had always kind of felt that was a draw and something that I always kept coming back to, whatever it was that I was raising money for: relationships, people, family, all of that kept coming, staring me in the face no matter what job I did. It was always the part that I loved the most. So I decided to just hang up my fundraising cape and go back to school. And I chose OISE very specifically as I was doing the research on where I wanted to go. The main reason I did want to stay in Toronto and I didn't want to uproot. I am married and I have one daughter who's now 11. And so I didn't want to uproot and move somewhere different. And I definitely wanted to do the in-person experience. As you can see, I graduated in 2020, so I managed to squeak it right in before everything went online. So that was pretty good timing on my part. So from there, after I did my MEd, I've now been working as a child and family counselor and a parenting coach with an organization called Connected Parenting. And I'm absolutely thrilled, and I can't probably describe in words how this feels 100% exactly where I should be in my life right now. So I spend my days with my clients, be it with parents or with kids or teenagers, and talking about and helping families navigate some of the ups and downs and challenges, specifically mostly within families, but also sometimes within the education system as well. So I do also work with educators, and I do webinars and workshops with sometimes educators as well as parents around ways, really, I mean, it's right in the title, the best ways to sort of connect and make sure you're, doing the best job as you can as a parent, because it is a hard job. And then part two to that is that right now, I guess the sort of impetus for where I'm at and what I'm doing, very timely in what I'm looking forward to is I'm looking forward to Mother's Day this weekend. And I'm looking forward to, in particular, because I am a mom, but specifically hanging out with my own mom, who I have not seen for many, many months because of COVID, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm looking forward to hanging out with her on Saturday and spending some time with family.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ulrika. Marcus, we'll have you speak next.
Peace. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for attending this. And thank you for even inviting me to hold space with you all to share my story. Well, for me, I'm originally from the south side of Chicago. And I applied to OISE because I met my beautiful wife, who's Canadian. And we basically was like having a conversation about like my education path. I had an undergrad degree, but I always wanted to have a master's degree. And so basically my wife found the program, the social justice education program at OISE for me. And I applied, and then I came to Canada and I completed my degree. And it's been an amazing experience for me just to even be here, just to even be in the space, to learn from the professors that I learned from and read the material that we were reading. I felt like it was speaking my heart when it comes to education, like the reimagination of education, and definitely trying to like push the envelope when it comes to education, specifically when it comes to like Black youth. And so that was like right up my alley. And just the community that I was able to develop at OISE and the relationships that I still stay in contact with people. And it was because of me being in that program, I was able to meet the magnificent Dr. Rosalind Hampton. Like the first class, one of the first courses I took was with her. And basically she encouraged me to continue my education with, to pursue a PhD. And I remember the conversation like it was yesterday. I basically told her, like, where I'm from, we don't really produce a lot of PhDs. And she was like, that's all the more reason why you should apply. And I'm gonna help you get through it. And so she created a Black Studies cohort where she hand selected students to walk them through to get their PhD. And so I'm in my second year right now. And right now I'm also a hip hop community connector for the Hart House Student Center. They have a hip hop ed team. We do a lot of workshops. We go into the schools and talk about hip hop. And one thing I love about what we're doing is because a lot of people have a lot of stereotypes when it comes to hip hop, and they think hip hop is performative. But we're coming from the fifth element of hip hop, which is knowledge of self, which is more critical thinking. how to like critically think and see your world and read your world, like Paulo Freire said. So that's basically the work that I'm doing at the Heart House. And I love what we're doing because, again, we're like pushing the envelope. We're thinking outside the box, and we're trying to create community, a community of learning, and, a community where we're encouraging Black and Indigenous youth to think outside of the box themselves and to become activists and become leaders, not only in their schools, but in their community as well. And to us, that's the true tenement and true mission of hip hop. So, yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Marcus. What are you looking forward to this week?
Man, everybody took all the good answers. Friday and Mother's Day, even though my mom is still in Chicago, I won't be able to see my mom if I, but what am I looking forward to? I'm actually looking forward to, I would say Mother's Day. I definitely looking forward to my mother mean a lot to me. So I'm definitely looking forward to Mother's Day, because I wouldn't be where I am today had it not been for my mother. So definitely.
Great answer. Thanks, Marcus. And last but not least, we have Sarah.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this exciting panel. I take a lot of pride of being an OISE alum, and I should mention that I'm also an incoming PhD student. This is how much my experience was great that I'm coming back as a PhD student in the fall in the same program, the higher education program. So Marcus, hopefully I'll see you around in campus. Where do I start? I think I'll start by saying that I am an immigrant to Canada. I came to Canada about a decade ago, and I stopped counting after 10 years. So maybe 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, and less or more, I have been in Canada. And, my story is a typical story of any immigrant. Add to that I'm a woman and I'm a mother. I have 3 children. So with that came a lot of challenges and barriers to start a life and a career from scratch. And I love learning. I'm alive. I love learning, and I always wanted to do my graduate degree, and I looked for different options. And when I came to Canada, man, this feels like yesterday, but so many challenges. My foreign credentials, I had an undergraduate degree in English language and literature that wasn't recognized by many employers. So my foreign credentials, the lack of Canadian experience, language and culture barriers, and so many other challenges that it felt really impossible to move forward in my life and career in any direction. So similar to many newcomers and immigrants, I thought that going back to school is the pathway to the Canadian labor market. And maybe it is, maybe it is not, but it has worked for me. So I went back to do some certification through Ryerson University and Toronto Metropolitan University RAU. And during that time, I just fell in love with the higher education system, university, student engagement, student experience. And I have talked to some colleagues who work within university, and I thought, people like UVL, and I was like, this is such a cool role. I want to work for a university or college, right? And what I've noticed is that most of them had a master in higher education and MEd from OISE. This is how I was introduced to the program and to OISE, or they are in the process of applying or halfway through the program. So I started having conversation, how to apply, what does the program offer, what kind of careers does the program offer. And I was lucky enough during that time to be offered a student position, which just evolved into me breaking into that higher ed sector and having my first position. Then I started my MEd program at OISE. I loved it very much, and I started slowly to see my career taking kind of a straight path or moving into the right direction. I'm seeing some upward mobility in my career, so I'm no longer stuck not knowing what I want to do. And I definitely, in a span of, 3-4 years, I moved from positions in project management, events management, student engagement, leadership, and then most recently in accreditation, quality assurance, and curriculum planning and development, before landing my position in the nonprofit as executive director for one of the nonprofit organizations out there serving immigrants and newcomers, which is really nice. Feels like coming a full circle. So that is my story with OISE and the MEd program. Happy to answer any questions, and really, really looking forward for the PhD journey and what this looks like. What I am looking for this week, definitely it's going to be a mix of everybody's answer. I'm really still looking forward to Friday and the weekend as well. They say it's going to be sunny and lovely, and definitely looking forward to Mother's Day. I have 3 lovely kids, but I'm also looking forward to say hi and celebrate Mother's Days with my mother as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everybody for introducing yourselves. I'm going to quickly just stop sharing my screen. This part is where our audience will be able to ask questions and raise their hand. I'm going to quickly just enable the raise hand option here. Just give me a second. So if you would like to ask a question to our panel, again, drop it in the Q&A section. I see that there are a couple, and then we will also be allowing those to raise their hand and unmute and talk to our panelists. And for the panelists, if you want to speak, just let me know, and then it's a natural conversation. If you want to add to it, feel free to do so. Okay, so I think we'll start with, there's one person in our audience. Azar has raised their hand, so I'll allow you to talk, Azar. Azar, you can.
Thank
okay,
you.
there. Hi
Thank
there.
you. Hi. Thank you so much for offering this opportunity. I'm really grateful to all of you for your time, for your consideration and everything. My question is simple. As I had also applied to the MA program, but unfortunately I couldn't win it. I have been put on wait list, so it's uncertain whether I would get it or not. In case if I don't get it, God forbid. So then I had also applied to the MEd program. I'm quite certain or hopeful that I would get admission in MEd program. But the thing is, because I have 3 kids, and I'm a new immigrant to Canada. I don't have any job. Well, at the moment, just part-time job. So I don't have much money. So if I'm offered this MEd admission, how would I pay my tuition fees? Because even these tuition fees are more than the MA fees. When I ask someone, it's around 12,000 plus something like per annum. So it's a huge amount for money, but I'm extremely desperate to get admission in MEd, because for this, I quit my job. I left my country, I left my family, everything, I put everything at stakes to get admission at OISE, because I've been planning to get in OISE for the last 3 years. So I am, I'm extremely desperate to get into, but how would I pay my tuition fee? That's the most thing. Well, I know the OSAP, but would that be enough? I don't think, because I have 3 kids as well, as you had mentioned. So apart from OSAP, how would I manage it? By the way, I'm a PhD in computer. I have already done my PhD in computer science as well. So could someone help me that how would I be able to pay my tuition fees as well as some, surviving as well with my 3 kids, a family? Thank you.
Zara, thank you so much for your question. So I'm just going to reframe it here, and just based on what you've told me, have told us, you're just a question related to finances and financing your Master of Education program while juggling also a family at the same time. I was wondering if any of our panelists can have any insight on that in particular, if they were able to find any ways to source their tuition or anything like any tips, tricks. Go ahead if anybody has any insight.
I can quickly share maybe some tips or things that I personally have done during my master degree. It is always a juggle of, providing for your family and working and then studying and covering these tuitions. And there are other expenses outside of paying the tuition fees, transportations and buying textbook and printing and it's just, it's a full package. So one of the things that I've done also to help me as an immigrant, and maybe this could be one of the things that you could look into as her, I do hope you get admitted, is that I really wanted to get the best out of my experience at OISE. I was desperate to get any Canadian experience. I was ready to say yes to anything, anything that would put me in the right path to launch my career. So the first thing that I've done, and the many questions that I would ask colleagues that have graduated from OISE, is what are the chances or the opportunities that I can land a job at OISE as a student? So I didn't know about this, but in the first semester, I was told that there is student-only platform where you can apply for part-time jobs as a research assistant, or in this case, there are a lot of jobs that get posted at the University of Toronto across all campuses for students. So a lot of these are internships or co-ops, and depends on the hours. Really, in the summertime, these are full-time, so it feels like you have a full-time job during the summertime when you're doing only one course. I felt that this gives you both like a little bit of experience, and also, you connect with colleagues, you know some people, and also make some living out of it. That's helpful. I also got introduced to the student union, which they offer a lot of grants. They offer a lot of scholarships to students. Sometimes they have emergency scholarships that you could apply for in your case you have a family. If you are ever in a situation that you are unable to pay your tuition fees, there are an application process where you can apply for emergency grants and whatnot. So I would look at the student union as well for the OISE graduate one. And I believe OISE also offers some financial assistance through scholarships. So I would look at the website and what they are offering aside from OSAP that you mentioned you already know about. I'll turn it over to other panelists, maybe if you have any other thing to add.
Emerald?
Hi there, Izar. I wish you all the best, and I hope that you get your heart's desire in terms of a new productive life here in Canada. So building on what Sarah has said, well, for me, I luckily was working at U of T, and that's part of the benefits that they offered is, free tuition, which really helped me because I also have 3 children. And it would definitely have been a challenge had I not had that opportunity. So sometimes it's also a matter of pursuing, let's say, sponsorships, applying for bursaries and grants to be able to help you. And, speaking, I would say, with student services to help you navigate how you can manage with a number of different options, including OSAP and including finding scholarships and bursaries and other types of incentives for either new Canadians or students who are trying to better their education. I wish you luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of you.
Thanks so much, Izar. Best of luck to you.
Yes. Thanks.
We're going to go over to our Q&A section. There is a question here. I'm just going to answer this one live. So this person is a teacher from Venezuela, started their master's degree in their country, but did not finish their thesis. Is there a way to do that at OISE? Would you encourage them to restart that journey, their graduate journey, especially from a particular background, from their career background in Venezuela? Does anybody want to answer to this? If not, I can answer it. Anna, there are a couple of options for you. It really depends on your career outlook. If you are looking to become a teacher, one of the main things that I would really do is to have a conversation with the Ontario College of Teachers to see if you are a certified educator, and if you want to get recertified, what are the next steps. So I would really talk to the licensing body first, and then afterwards contact us when they get back to you in terms of what they're looking for. If you're just looking to get a master's degree kind of separate from your teaching journey, we can definitely have a conversation about that. There's I'll send out the email address later, but come to OISE. You can set up a recruitment appointment with myself and my other colleague, Andy, who we have a one-to-one advising appointment. So we could definitely talk about the different pathways there. So I would encourage you to reach out when you're ready to do so, and I'll send that contact information shortly. Thanks for your question. We are going to go to Graham has a question. Did you have a position already lined up before you participate in an MEd? If not, how difficult did you find it to secure a job that applied your MEd knowledge? If anyone wants to take that.
I can take that one and kick us off with that one.
Sure.
So absolutely not. It was the scariest and, best decision I ever made. There's hands down. I had all of the different, imposter syndrome. I think the first week when I was at OISE, I was calling my husband on a daily basis. And some days I was crying and saying, I can't believe what I've done. Because I was a very confident fundraiser. I had been in the industry for a long period of time. I knew my way forwards and backwards. And, it was a really comfortable degree or a comfortable career for me. And then other days I called and I said, I feel brilliant. I feel like I just am on fire. I feel like I'm answering questions and the professors are getting me and I'm getting everything else. And then there was other days that I just felt completely lost. And I think the piece of that, and the reason I start with that story, is because it can be scary jumping into something that you've never absolutely done before. And you have to learn just to sit in it. You have to learn how to sit in that uncomfortability and know that you're going to go through a whole bunch of roller coaster emotions and be okay with the fact that you don't have the next thing lined up. For some people, this can be really scary, and they have to sort of know. It's sort of the difference between someone who's very comfortable working contract and another person who really wants to feel the security of a permanent full-time position. But when doing this, it's sort of, you have to be okay with not really knowing. And so I had no idea what I was going to do. I definitely felt that I had everything that I was doing while doing my degree. I was always drawn to mental health, always drawn to social emotional learning, always drawn to parenting, education. But I really couldn't, when somebody would say, what are you going to do with your degree after? I couldn't nail it down. I didn't know. I was like, well, I'm going to become a counselor and this is what I'm going to do. It kind of morphed after the fact, which I can get into later. But I did not have any sort of clear plan when I was done. I just knew that I made a promise to myself that I would do, and I was a complete and utter, nerd. I took more courses than I was allowed to take. Don't say, but I do the auditing. Like, I just wanted to learn everything. Like, I was like, give me more. I want to take more. And I read everything that I possibly could read, and learn, and met people and all of that. And I said to myself, if I don't do anything with this degree specifically, I'm going to be okay with it, because the degree itself was my gift. So I didn't put any pressure on myself to have a job lined up after the fact. If you know me, which obviously you guys don't know, but I'm a huge planner. I plan everything. So this was a big step for me not to plan my big career move. So that would be my answer.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ulrika. I love that. It's that's like a big risk too, especially from jumping from career to career, from a solid career to something completely different. So appreciate that answer. Thank you. Does anybody else would like to answer the question?
Yeah, just to piggyback. Oh, go ahead, Amaral. You can go ahead.
No, I've talked a lot. Marcus, you first.
Yeah, I would say too, I think for me, it was very similar. I was, before I moved to Canada, my wife was like, you need a graduate degree in order to get a quote unquote good job here in Toronto. So, but for me, I wasn't really thinking about that. I was just thinking about like the courses, and I was just like in the moment in each course. And I focused on building relationships with people and networking. Things that I said in class, spark somebody's interest. And then during the class break or after class, I wound up sparking, a conversation with that person. And then that led to other things and that's how I got this position I'm at the Hart House, was basically off of me doing a presentation in one of my courses. And a woman that was in the class, she had worked at the Hart House before. And she was like, man, I got the perfect people to set you up with, because they're doing all the work that you said like in your presentation. And so she connected me to them, and I was able to like volunteer. I did like a writing workshop for a group of youth that was from Scarborough. And then that led to me doing other things with them. And then that led to this position. When this position opened up, I had already had a relationship with them. So OISE is just like a beautiful place to build relationships, to network. And like I said in my introduction, like those relationships I'm still in contact and in relationship with the people that I met during my master's, completing my MEd. So I love OISE, man. I can't stop talking. It was a blessing to me. And it really just like, people said like, you like are completely different than how you are when you first get here. You barely said anything when you first started your program. Now you talking, you doing workshops. It's like, and I owe that all to OISE, like the learning and the interactions that I was getting, and the encouragement that I was getting from my colleagues and people that I was going through this journey with. So I would say like, don't even, I know for like Eureka said, you have those that have plans and things of that nature, but I would agree with her too. Like, I would say just, absorb that pedagogy of discomfort, because we don't grow in comfortable spaces, but we grow in uncomfortable spaces. So just don't even worry about what the next, because it'll materialize, it'll happen, especially in a space like OISE. So that's what I would say.
Thanks, Marcus. Love that. I love the growth in discomfort. I totally agree with that. Thank you. Emerald?
I totally agree with what Marcus has said, and that's why I'm glad you went first. So speaking of embracing discomfort, I think, having the graduate degree from OISE, really gave me the confidence to explore other career options. So, I was comfortable with a, good job at the Scarborough campus, but I was getting bored, and I do get uncomfortably being comfortable. And so I leveraged that graduate degree to a role as, an advisor on equity, diversity, and inclusion. And now I've parlayed that role as a recruiter in the academic space. So supporting academic institutions, whether it's colleges or universities, to find their leaders. And, we are in a world where credentials matter. And so it's not about me having a specific role in, adult education, community development. We have to remember, in fact, that we're all as adults learners. And so I leverage that all the time in my role, in the training that I do. And it gives an added sense of credibility to be able to have that designation. So I think one can leverage it in any role, and it is seen as a benefit and as a value add.
Definitely. Thank you, Emerald. Okay, Linda.
Quick thing
sure.
To that, just to wrap it up. I think your career will always be a work in progress. And for me, when I came to OISE, I was in a position, I was underemployed, what we call it within the immigrant world. When we come here, I was an instructor back home. I was in managerial position leading NGOs and nonprofit. And when I came here, I was in a very entry-level position, started with survival, being in the gig economy, which is even scary to think about now, but there was a lot of frustration during my degree that what I am doing a degree and I should be in a position people are progressing and moving with their careers. And I felt that kind of frustration or negative energy is getting into my experience as a student, right? And I came to the conclusion that wherever I go, I will always be unsatisfied. If I'm a manager, I always want to be a director. If I'm a director, I want to be an executive director. Now I'm an executive director. What's next for me? Because you always look for what's best for yourself. So don't feel, don't be hard on yourself. Enjoy the process. Trust your journey. You will land where you should land. And really, it is a key that you trust the process and you enjoy the process more than keep thinking about the outcome. And as everybody said, like, you're going to end up with a degree from OISE. That is a big deal. To me, I was able to leverage this to move forward with my career. And interview setting, I say, I have a graduate degree from OISE. And from that, I have learned 1, 2, 3. And Marcus, I 100% agree with you. OISE had opened so many doors for me. Mentors, the best mentors that I ever had are from OISE. They helped me. I call them until today, and they advise me on my career and other things. The best friend that I have in Toronto, in Canada, one of very few, and it's very hard to make friends when you're, immigrating and being an immigrant in a country, was a colleague from my class that I have built that connection and relationship with them. So enjoy your experience to the best that you can, and just trust your journey. You will land somewhere. This degree will open doors for you and it will take you places. Just be patient, and don't be harsh on yourself.
I love that. Thank you for closing that up, Sarah. That was a great answer. Summarized everybody's really nicely. Thank you. We're going to go over to Linda. Linda, I'm going to allow you to talk. If you could just unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm not sure my connection here is very stable. Okay, I'm now in Shanghai, and I have been unfortunately in quarantine for about a month. I really appreciate all of you for your time and sharing with us all those wonderful experiences. But I'm very curious about the most impressive or the most rewarding experience at OISE. So could any one of you please share with us the most maybe rewarding or a moment at OISE that maybe when you look back, that the moment somehow led you to your career today? Thank you.
Yeah, I said it in my introduction. My most memorable moment at OISE was meeting Dr. Rosalind Hampton. I wasn't even thinking about a PhD. I was just coming to get a master's, and then after that, I was look for a career. And it was because of my interaction with her. And just having these conversations, because she did in her class, she would have these activities called exit cards, where she would give us writing prompts, and we would physically write in our journals. And she would take all of our journals, like 25 students' journals, read them, and then respond to them in our specific journals. And so we were engaged in this conversation through writing, like writing exchanges. And then during that, one day she just called me up to the class, up to the front, and we just had a conversation. And she thought I was already in a PhD program, I guess, based on what I was writing. And I looked at her like, "Are you crazy? Like, I'm in this MEd program just trying to get through." And she was like, "Yeah, I think you should look a little further, because I think you got the potential to go further in your PhD, to get a PhD." And that was like my most memorable moment, because it was a dream that I tucked in my heart, because, I was able to meet a professor in Chicago who was from where I'm from. He was a Black man from the same area I was from. And I was just like blown away. And I kind of tucked that in my heart, like, man, maybe one day I could be him. And sure enough, meeting Professor Hampton, she's given me this opportunity to pursue this. So that was like my most memorable moment, and being a part of a Black Studies cohort, because like somebody talked about imposter syndrome. I go through that all the time. It's like based on where I'm from. Like I'm from humble beginnings. Like I'm from, I don't want to get into details, but I basically shouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? And so I just see it as a blessing for me to even be where I'm at, to be the position that I'm in. And sometimes I say, man, I can't do this. But being a part of a Black Studies cohort, I have colleagues that's like, nah, we going to do this. Like, we go get through this together. Like, you're not turning back. Like, you only go stop when we complete this. So just having that has been like very memorable for me. So that's one of my memorable moments.
Thanks, Marcus. Anybody
Yeah, sure. I can share one of my memorable moments. There was many, but the first one, I'm going to go with the one that first popped into my head because it's a little bit funny too. So I was in, it was a 9:00 class, and me and my group were presenting on anxiety and depression. And so that morning, and as you know, during the time, my daughter was catching a bus to get to school. So I had, for the one time, dropped her off at the bus stop and just asked another parent just to watch, just to make sure, obviously, the bus went, because I had to get to class. My husband had a meeting at work. So it was just one of those mornings. And I'm getting ready, and I get a phone call from the mom who was at the bus stop. And sure enough, this morning, my daughter decided to swing on the gate that was in the park, and she knocked out her front tooth. So she was, bleeding, and tooth was out, like she lost her tooth. So I'm just like, I can't. And I mean, I texted my group, and my husband was already at work. And so it was pure, I'm going to cut to the chase. It was pure and utter chaos. The mom dropped my daughter off. My husband's trying to zip home. I made it with like a minute to spare to get down to this presentation, because I said, you guys just go ahead. But I'm thinking, I'm going to, completely tank this. I'm going to miss the presentation. And the first thing I had to do, I was leading the class in a mindful meditation around anxiety. So I walk in, if you can imagine, my anxiety level is like through the roof. I'm sweating, it's hot, and I've like been on the side, and I was racing, and my mind was still with my daughter, who I basically felt like I just sort of dumped and ran out of the house and went, you'll be okay. Like ran out. And it was that moment after when I reflected and went, this is what I want to do. I want to take, because somehow or another, I dug deep. I used the mindful meditation for myself as well, to ground myself. I led the class in this, and it was a true application of research and applicability coming to sort of head all at once. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do, because when I went in to do my master's, I didn't know if it was going to lead to a PhD or what it was. But it was sort of that moment where I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to teach. I want to educate. I want to take research and evidence-based practices and help the world be a better place. And because I felt the whole room, including myself, just kind of whoosh. And it was pretty cool given how high anxiety I was coming in. So that was definitely a moment of a real life moment in my degree that I can kind of pinpoint and went, that was definitely a defining moment for me. So that was one neat experience that I would share.
Awesome. Thanks, Ulrika. Anybody else have anything to add?
I can quickly share that a very remarkable and memorable moment for me was when I got my admission offer. It felt so unreal. So I get emotional when I talk about it. So when I first came to Canada, I did my master at OISE after being in Canada for 7 years. So you might wonder, what have I done during that time? Well, I did nothing but applying to grad school. And I got nothing but rejection. Too bad for these institutions, they lost me. I'm well in my career and my academic journey as well. But and the feedback that I get is that when they do this foreign credentials, trying to evaluate my credentials. It does not meet the Canadian standard. So it was really heartbreaking. I was given the advice that I had to go back to school and take some undergraduate courses, which I ended up taking 10, which means, you already have an undergraduate degree, but then it's not recognized in the Canadian standard. So I ended up doing 10 courses from an undergraduate level to be able to apply for grad schools. I never thought of applying to OISE or U of T because I was always told that OISE and U of T will recruit the best and brightest, and that I never saw myself fitting in that criteria with my foreign credentials, being a newcomer, being, so many things. I never thought to apply to OISE, and I thought to myself, you know what? I've done these 10 courses that other recruitment or offices told me to do, a lot of money, a lot of energy. I was frustrated having to do it. And then I applied to OISE and I said, I'm going to throw application to all the other institutions that rejected me, and I got accepted in all of them. But the moment that I got my acceptance offer from OISE was just, was so special and so unique. It was so surreal for me to get it after being rejected so many times. And then when I got my degree shipped to my home, I didn't get to do convocation because of the pandemic and COVID. That felt like a really nice experience, just going through full circle and really graduating from OISE and having that degree. So.
Thanks, Sarah. Don't worry, you'll have it when you graduate from your PhD. You'll have the ceremony.
I hope so.
Yes. Thank you for all your answers. That's awesome. And I think one of the main things that comes out of this conversation too is to not give up, especially if maybe the outcome of your application may not be necessarily the outcome that you want it to be in firsthand. There are so many opportunities, and as you can see at any points of your career where you can apply to a program or find ways to really strengthen your program, either through experiences or, as Sarah was saying, maybe taking some undergraduate courses. So those are some of the ways that you can strengthen your application. But don't forget, it could be at any point in time of your career that you can apply to us as well. So don't be disheartened when you hear back from us and it may not necessarily be the outcome that you want. Also talk to other alumni and reach out to them, or even speak to our recruiters, and we can definitely set up some time to go through components of your application, what makes an application strong. So there are resources too that will definitely help you in building a strong application at any point in time. So thank you for that. So I'm going to, Linda, does that answer your question?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks for your question. That was great. All right, folks, we are going to, I have a question here from Amanda. I'm considering applying to the MEd DPE. Oh, that could be you for you, Ulrika, or the MA School Clinical Child Psychology programs at OISE. My end goal is to work within the school boards in the capacity as a school psychologist. I have earned a psychology undergraduate degree and have some work experience as a classroom assistant. No teaching certificate, though. I'm wondering what the difference between the programs are, and if not having a teaching certificate has any bearing on admission for either.
VL, you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong on this, but so essentially the difference between the two is that the MEd, you don't get any sort of designation. So to get your sort of clinical psychologist, going and doing your MA and then doing your thesis is part of the process in the journey in order to get there. And then most when they're doing the MA will go on to do their PhD after that, but not always, I guess. But in order to do that with the MEd, you don't get that. You don't get a sort of a designation. I belong with my degree, I belong to the Ontario Association of Mental Health Professionals, but it doesn't give me that psychologist designation or social. So I can't call myself a psychologist. I can't call myself a social worker. But I can call myself a counselor. I can call myself a parent coach. That's okay under those guidelines. But when you're a psychologist or social worker, you belong to a certain association and therefore have that designation. So is that correct, BL, as far as I think I got
yes.
that right?
Yes.
And sometimes, I mean, I'll add to that a little bit because I mean, it might be that there's other people out in the audience thinking about this as well. For me, I didn't know that I wanted to do that path. So for sometimes you might know, yeah, I want to do I want to be a psychologist, I want to be a clinical psychologist, I want to work in the school system. For me, I didn't really know what, and that's why I love the MEd degree and doing the developmental psychology and education, because it literally is, you learn a little bit about everything. So if you don't really know, it's a fantastic degree. I kind of call it like a potpourri of all things psychology and education all mixed into a wonderful bag, and you can really kind of feel where you gravitate towards and what your pull is, and then go from there. I have a friend of mine who did her MEd and then she did her MA, and now she's going to do probably go on to do her PhD. So sometimes it's kind of it's a nice way just to dip your toe in the water and see what you get out of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ulrika. Great. So there's a question here for Sarah. This question is from Manveer. There are 4 sub-MEd programs for higher education. So there's education and professions, higher education leadership, and then student development and student services in higher education. We have so many programs within one, but how did you go about differentiating and deciding which program was right for you? Is there a website linked to the different courses that differentiate the 4 programs? And I can drop that in the chat as well to you, Manveer. But yes, I think, how did you differentiate from it, Sarah? How did you choose the program that you went into?
I think I had no clue going into it. In the application stage, they give you options, you know, your priority number 1, 2, 3, you are allowed to choose 3 programs. I think I did put higher education general, I did put the student services, I did put leadership. So as you can tell, I had no clue what the difference is. It's so difficult. But I guess based on my application, they have seen that I have a little bit of student service, student development, student engagement experience. So they offered me the student services stream, and I moved into that. There are certain requirements in terms of the required courses that you need to take for each stream. So be careful. But I did change. So there is a lot of flexibility. All you need to do is submit a really short form to say, I want to transfer from, I don't know, student services to the general higher ed. You want to make sure of the timeline, because you don't want to do that transfer at the last semester of your degree where there are, you know, certain requirements to graduate. But also I think the leadership one is very strict. I think they accept every other year new cohort, and it has a cohort model. So you come into the program and you graduate with a specific cohort. And there are specific courses that is only open to the leadership cohort. I was lucky enough to get into being accepted or approved to do some of these courses. And it's really for professionals in higher education and leadership, or they aspire to be in leadership positions. So a lot of the content is around human resources and diversity issues within higher education, funding models within higher education, strategic planning within higher education. So I loved that because it was general enough to be applied to everything. I really didn't like to limit myself within student services, because that will limit me to only do student services. Even, for example, when I interviewed for the executive director position that I recently got, I was able to talk a lot about courses around strategic planning, about funding models, about financial skills that I've learned from my graduate degree, because those courses were general enough to be applied into anything. So I do recommend the general higher education stream, or the leadership one is good as well, unless you know that you want a career in student services. So that would be something. And what I did is I diversified as much as possible the courses that I'm taking. So actually I did a lot of courses from adult education, community development that were around. I also did courses from curriculum. So I really took a little bit from everything. So I'm having this wide variety of exposure to different courses and different programs. Sorry, Sarah, in the background.
That's okay. That's okay. Thanks, Sarah. And I want to really emphasize that too. With the Master of Education program, you're taking 10 courses in total, 5 of which should be within your program or your department. And then the other half can be in any department or in any program that you want or area of specialization. So again, this is your opportunity to really tailor the program of your choice and what you want to get out of it, right? So it offers the flexibility in terms of time, but also in knowledge and skills that you're going to obtain from it. So take advantage of that opportunity to really get yourself like the experiences that you need and the knowledge that you need to help you in your career. Thank you for that question. I think there is someone that would like to, Manveer. I think we answered your question, but I'll allow you to talk. Hi, Manveer, you can unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah, for answering the question. In terms of you saying that you were able to take additional courses, you know how there's a timeline for example, full-time students to complete, I believe it's 3 years. How do you go about, for example, if there is a full-time program and it's 2 years, how do you go about taking more courses? Do you kind of just extend beyond your full-time date that you'd graduate?
I am not sure. I would one of the things that I would do is maybe speak to like a registration specialist or one of your graduate liaison officers. Ulrika, if you wanted to.
Yeah, I can jump. I mean, there's the I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. There's the way that you're supposed to do it, and then there's the other ways that you can sort of, if you can present a good case. So for example, what I did is I went to a couple of the professors because I knew like that there was a couple of other courses. So I think I took 4 extra courses, and I did what was called auditing them. So I didn't receive a mark. I asked if I could hand in assignments like every other student and be marked on them because I wanted, and they looked at me like I was crazy because they're like, well, you're not getting marked. And I said, well, as long as you are okay with adding the extra time, then that's okay. It was particularly interesting in my class I took on motivation and learning. So she completely outed me at one point in the thing because nobody in the everyone, I said, please just treat me like every other student. And she's right in the middle of the class. She's like, and Ulrika is a prime example of someone who is so highly motivated, she doesn't even want to mark in the class. So it's quite funny, but you can do what's called auditing if you can get the permission of the professor. The other things that sometimes I just asked for the syllabus, and I would just ask, sort of just so I could do my own self-learning if there's something that you're interested in, because I do remember, I can't remember exactly the specifics, but once you can only take a certain number per semester. And then once you hit sort of that 10, then you're like, you have to like pay and get out. So if you speed through it and you have all of your courses registered, and because I know some students would take 4 because that is allowed, just be careful that they don't kick you out before you have all the time. Like if you want to take all the semesters that you're entitled to, that's the only thing. So if you want to learn more, certainly, but I would just recommend going to, hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying that, but just going to the professors and asking if you can audit and just sit in on the class, or, I ask for the syllabus or however that is. I would say another cool way to learn, if that sort of is around the question, is that I joined like 3 labs at OISE, so I could just get an understanding of what the research components were. So I joined 3 different labs that were run by professors. And I was able to do that because they're always looking for people and, to do help with the data entry or whatever. So that was a really nice way for me to really get an understanding of the research side of the house too.
Thanks, Ulrika. We got a question from Manveer. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that does.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have a question here from Renee. Hello, thank you for the wonderful talk. I would love to learn more about the work each of the panelists does now and how it relates to their MEd program. This is a pretty open-ended question, so if anyone wants to take it. Emerald?
Okay. Thanks for the question. As I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't say that the work I do currently has any direct relation to adult education, community development, although I do use adult education principles in terms of how I engage with clients and candidates and how I ask questions. So I really do think it's a matter of leveraging the learning that you've done in the classroom to real life experiences around engaging, collaborating, being respectful, working with adults, and how you can translate the ability to connect in a meaningful and thoughtful way with your colleagues, and how your education, your learning has amplified that, has made you almost a subject matter expert in, engaging with adults in a meaningful way. So it's really about how you position yourself and how you position your learning, because one might say, okay, so she does recruitment, she's a headhunter. What does that have to do with, a master's degree in education and her focus on adult education and community development? But it's really about how you position your leadership and how that knowledge that you learned in the classroom can be applied in real life settings. So I think that's an important way to position the learning and the benefits of an OISE education.
Thanks, Emerald. Would anyone like to add to that?
I can jump in and add. So currently, as I mentioned, so I'm working as a child and family counselor with Connected Parenting. So most of what I do is working directly with clients. I mean, there was no way that I'd be doing what I do right now had I not gone back to school. I mean, as much as I knew for myself what I sort of naturally knew and was gravitated towards and would always kind of look at learning about, there was no way I could just jump into this world and be like, so hi, who are you? Well, I've worked in fundraising, but I'd like to help you with your parenting challenges. Like they wouldn't. I think, Amaral, you were the one that said it before, the master's degree does add that element of, that I'm where I'm supposed to be, or that I've done something in order to acquire the skills that I have. And so I very much agree with Amaral. It's what the application of that. And even though that I'm not going to pursue a PhD, the critical thinking, the analytical thinking, the application to real life. And I'm telling you, the big, huge thing for me, which I would say is relationships. Everything in life comes down to relationships. Every single one of us, at OISE, in whatever degree, the MEd for, the DP or curriculum and higher learning, social justice, it all comes down to relationships. And it is what you put into that degree and the relationships that you learn from these different relationships that really makes that application. So for me, doing what I do now, I'm always kind of juggling between, thinking about evidence-based and science sort of based strategies and how those apply to real life and relationships. So it is very much, I'm using both sides of my brain, which is pretty cool. So that is, on a day-to-day, and, I hope that it can sort of expand into different formats too, just because I work mostly with parents and kids now. All of the things that we talk about through connected parenting and what I put in my own practice as far as compassion, self-compassion and compassion-based therapy can be applied in the school system and the education system and with teachers in classrooms, which is desperately needed right now. So all of these things that having the ability to, because I certainly for myself, when I went back, I was like, wow, I mean, I took I forget what it was called, but how to write a proper academic essay. I mean, I was rusty. So all of these things help you then to communicate your message. So I would say that I use my degree with the application. I liked how Emerald said it, really sort of how you take it and apply it to the real world, I think is really important. Sorry, that was kind of long-winded, but
no, that's okay. It's all good. It was really good.
I got there eventually.
Does anyone want to add to it before we go through the next question? I'm also mindful of the time that we have together.
I can talk quickly a little bit about my other thing of what I do outside of my full-time job. I do a little bit of consulting, and I've noticed that when you are a consultant and when you are submitting, there is requests for proposal and there's organizations looking for a consultant to run different things. Having a graduate degree really matters, and it made all the difference. And I'm really looking forward to just say I'm a PhD candidate or I'm a PhD student. I feel it makes a whole lot of difference. But also what I was able to apply from the graduate degree, what was mentioned about the academic writing and the research skills, and with research comes a lot of analysis and understanding and making a good case and putting together a good proposal, and communicating your proposal and research finding. I never done this before OISE, and I learned about all these different research skills and a lot about presentation skills and communication skills during my degree, and I was able to apply them everywhere and anywhere, especially if you are doing consulting, if you're going to do a one-off program evaluation or writing a grant or being involved in a research project. I have been involved in so many research projects since I graduated from OISE, and I always go into these interviews. I know I understand research, I understand the methodology, I can collect the data, I can analyze it, I understand different theories and models. So sometimes in different settings, depends on where you're going to go in your career, in your life. No employer is going to say no to somebody who understands research and have strong writing skills and understand theory and understand presentation and communication skills on different style. It's always a good skill to have that you are a strong writer in anything, whether it is a report, whether it is a grant, whether it is an academic paper. That is always a good skill to have.
Yeah, I would piggyback off of that too as well. Like, graduate school allowed me to do the two things that I love doing the most, and that's reading and writing. You know what I'm saying? Like, being able to, I would add three things, and be able to process and ruminate and think about what I'm reading and writing. So, like, I guess outside of what I'm doing now, me completing this graduate degree gave me the courage to like actually work on a book. So I'm currently working on a book right now on my own to publish on my own. And it's like a love letter to like Black students, you know what I'm saying? So had I not went through this experience of graduate school, I don't think I would have had the courage to like, man, I can do this, you know what I'm saying? So I would add on to that as well. So, and it helps to have that graduate degree. And even on the creative side, you know what I'm saying? Like Professor Hampton always talk about, you always have to have the critical and the creative. Like, it's good to have the critical thinking, but that also informs your creative work, whether that's writing or any other art form that you do. So it just makes you more complete as a human being, as a thinker, and as a lifelong learner. So that's what I would add to what Sister Sarah said.
Can I add one more thing, just because I had a really cool thought when Marcus just said that, and I think it's really important, worth saying. It's also important to remember the flip side of this, because this is academic. And so because my career prior to this, so I worked at the ROM and I was a fundraiser. So if you know anything about that, you're basically like a broker between donors and then the researchers. A critical skill is being able to translate research into accessible ways for people to understand, because researchers and scientists get super deep into their stuff. And then you ask them, hey, what are you researching? And it's like, and then your eyes glade and you have no idea. And because they're so in it. So a really critical thing that I always really try to remember is pulling myself out of the research and making sure I could understand how to translate it so it's accessible for the general public. And it's not, I hate the term like dumbing it down. It's not about dumbing it down, but the terms can be quite, overwhelming, and they can be quite, it's not everyday language. So having that skill and remembering that through your degree at OISE, I think is a really awesome skill to have, so you can actually explain what it is that you're learning.
Truth, absolute truth. Thanks, Ulrika. Marcus, I hope we're invited to the book launch of your of your book.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you, thank you. I have one more question here. This will probably conclude our session. This one's just from Jing Yi, just about, can you share some tips about how to make the first step after or before your graduation? Like, how did you go about getting your foot into the door? How important is it having connections, and were you connected with someone at the place you work at? If so, how did you leverage those connections to secure the position? It's a multifaceted question, so I apologize in advance. If not, is it possible to secure a job without connections? Thank you. Sorry if this was a lot of questions. No problem, Jingy. Yeah, I think like just in terms of like, how did you get your foot in the door? How were you able to really start your career path after you graduate, or even navigate through your career path? And maybe also to add to the question, maybe like a piece of advice for our audience today in your responses.
I can jump in. I didn't do anything. I literally went to Costa Rica and enjoyed a vacation and said, I'll figure it out when I get back, and allowed myself. And then, well, interesting because you saw what year I graduated, which was 2020. So my course is finished in December. We went to Costa Rica in March, and that was when the world changed. And so when we came back, all my plans just kind of went, because I thought, okay, when I get back, I'll start thinking about what I want to do, and I'll start planning and yada, yada. Well, everything changed. And so again, it was one of these nice moments for me through a lot of chaos of learning how to be super not know what's going on and be okay with that, and knowing that, okay, it's going to be a little while till I figure everything out, because there's a whole heck of a lot of stuff, other things that are going on. So, but to answer the question, it's not like I just sat there and did nothing. I did a lot of thinking, which, I mean, COVID did give me that opportunity. It's the silver lining in it all, that I was able to do a lot of thinking and planning and that kind of thing. And I really wanted to go out on my own. I wanted to, which I've launched sort of my own on as well as Connected Parenting, having my own company as well, that I want to do more of the social emotional learning skills. But I knew that that would also not be the best idea for me at the time, because it would take a long time and I was eager. So what did I do? I sought out the two people that I knew were two fantastic parenting experts in Canada, Jennifer Kalari and Allison Schaefer. I started reading a ton of stuff around that. They both become mentors and friends. And now, I mean, it kind of just morphed from there. And it's a longer story, but when Jennifer and I met for the first time on Zoom, we clicked right away. And so I do say networking. I'm always on it. And I know people get tired of the term networking. So I'll say it's relationships. And you know what? You can network and network and network, but if you're not being your true, genuine, authentic self, and it feels like a forced thing, it will never work. So being your authentic self and just chilling out and just going and meeting people and talking about your story and asking for 15 minutes, that really leads to, I mean, Marcus talked about that earlier. I mean, it was through a class presentation, and, you know, one thing leads to another. So when we put so much pressure on ourselves, oftentimes we're so stuck on that the stuff doesn't come. So I, you know, definitely, and I'm skipping over a lot. Obviously, there were days where my husband was kind of like, when are we going back to double income? Because this whole single income thing's kind of killing me here. And there's a lot of pressure because it's COVID. But all that to say is that I do practice what I preach, and self-compassion and being kind to yourself, and letting yourself be in a moment or lots of moments where you don't always know what's going to happen next. And then the piece of advice to round out my answer would be that you get what you put into something. I saw so many students sitting surfing, you know, whatever, Facebook, Instagram, you know, TikTok, whatever, in the lecture halls, and I never understood it. I was like, oh, please, just, you don't understand the privilege that you're sitting in right now, and this opportunity to learn, even if the professor might be super boring at this particular moment. It always, so you get what you put into it, whether it's listening to an awesome lecture, forcing yourself to listen to a not so awesome lecture, you know, talking to your professors, meeting the people around you that you're sharing these tables with, and having coffees and chats and whatever with, you get what you put into it. So if you don't put much, you're not going to get much. If you put a lot, you'll get a lot out of it.
That should be a mug. You get
Yeah.
what you put into it. I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just to piggyback off of, well said, Rika. That was beautiful. Like, I don't know much what I can add to what you said. That was well said. But I would just say, like, you know, be in the moment. You know what I mean? Like, stay in the moment. And Rika already said that. Like, just stay in the moment. And I don't think being in OISE, the professors are amazing. So I can't see anybody. Why would they be on TikTok or anything? Because I was like I was like at the edge of my seat, like, wow, these professors are amazing. Like, like, just to hear like the work that they're doing, and just to hear like the grasp of their whatever whatever the course was, just the knowledge base that they had and the books that they were putting us onto. Like, I was just like, yeah, I was like, I don't see how you can be doing anything. But I was like, stay engaged and stay in the moment and look for those moments where they call it what is the word I'm looking for? I can't even think of the word, but it's like it's a word based, I think it's from the Middle East, where it's like it's these opportunities that happen, like where you think it just like happened, but it's actually like a divine, appointment that you meet and greet people and be able to connect with people. So always look out for those moments when you come to OISE, because they will happen and they will present themselves. So that's what I would add.
Thanks, Marcus. Awesome. Yeah, I want to write all this down. Thankfully, it's being recorded. Emerald, Sarah, would you like to add to the answers and maybe share a piece of advice for our audience here?
Listen to Ulrika and Marcus. They've said it very, very eloquently, and I agree. You're going to be investing a lot of time, energy, resources, so definitely make the most out of the experience, make it valuable. One thing, my only regret, and I know at the time I was busy working full-time, studying part-time, and being a full-time parent and partner, that I didn't engage as much as I wanted to. And I think I regret that. Now I made, I made connections, but they were surface level connections with the colleagues in my class. And perhaps it's because I had the comfort of already having a job. So it wasn't as critical, the notion of networking. I went to class, I left, I handed in my assignment. So if I had to do it again, I would be more deeply and authentically engaged with my classmates and with my professors.
Thanks so much, Emerald. Sarah, would you like to add to that?
I'll try to wrap it up. I mean, there is nothing to add after what everybody has said beautifully and eloquently captured, really. How can you get the best out of your experience during OISE? And yes, you invested so much of yourself financially, time, capacity, energy. You might as well make it a positive experience that is worth it. I think similar to Marcus, I think having a champion was a key for me during my degree, and having mentors is something different, but having someone championing me throughout this journey was key. Imposter syndrome is real, especially for us folks coming from, marginalized groups. Sometimes you feel you question if you really belong to this place, if you really belong to be in a PhD or a master program, and for me, having a champion, my faculty advisor, she deserved to be mentioned tonight. She's Catherine Jansen, and she helped me a lot from the minute that I got accepted. Email communication helped me with my courses and outlines and juggling, and she was the one, Sarah, you've got a lot of potential, you've got to do your PhD. And I replied back and I said, that I have 3 young children. you know that, just making sure that you're aware of the crazy fact that I have 3 young children. She said yes, and you can do it, and the fact that there was someone who always say you can do it, you belong here, made all the difference. So for me, connect with your professors, connect with your faculty advisor, and try to find that. I wouldn't say one faculty, because honestly, my experience was really great with most of the professors and faculty, but try to find someone who will champion you through this journey. Sometimes it feels a lonely journey if you're not going to engage, if you're just going to go classes to home and home to job. It's gonna feel a lonely journey and a less meaningful one. But also keep in mind that a lot of the instructors and professors who teach at OISE are also practitioners. And that has actually, like, when I got into OISE, I was in one of the classes about women, war, and migration. And the professor just noticed that I had a passion and understanding of migration and settlement. And she said, I have a research project. Would you work with me? So I got an 8-month contract to work as a research assistant. Another one, he's like, come work for me. Like, there are all these opportunities that come when a professor sees that there is a lot of potential and a student that is really cares and invested so much in the program. So keep in mind that sometimes professors are very academic, but some of them are also practitioners, are in the field, extremely well connected. So leverage this and try to stand out. It will lead to something. Hope it will lead to something.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was great. Definitely. Our professors are very much so practitioners in their field, and networking is a really good opportunity, especially within your classrooms, but also outside of your classrooms at OISE. And hopefully when we do get back into the building, we'll be able to make those like small connections in the hallways as well. So just mindful of the time, just wanted to firstly thank our panelists for being here. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I really appreciate each and every one of you and all the valuable insight and knowledge you have given both to me and our audience. It's been really great to chat with you tonight and just have a conversation. It went like so smoothly, like we all just like vibed really well. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I also wanted to shout out to Brian from Educational Commons for supporting me on the tech side of things. It was a bit of a messy start, but I really appreciate your help on everything. To my colleague Gaius Shams, who has been a co-lead on this recruitment initiative. He's helped me plan and build my communications to you all and our panelists. And so I really want to take the time to thank him. To our wonderful audience, thank you for the questions that have led us into a very enlightening discussion about our future career pathways and how to best take our Master of Education pathway. I really appreciate all your questions. And if there are any questions that are unanswered today, feel free to reach out to come to OISE. We are more than happy to have a chat with you and be on the lookout for future events like this. This is the first time that we've held an alumni panel for future students. If you thought that this was helpful in really making a decision for you to pursue a Master of Education, or if it's something that you've never thought about before, feel free to reach out with us and we can definitely we'll definitely take that feedback and hopefully hold more of these events. That's just something to look out for. I believe that there will be a survey coming out too, so please do fill it out just so we can get your feedback on this and future events such as this. And that's it for tonight. Again, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to networking again with you all soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, VL.
Yes.
Thank you
to all of you.
Thank you, VL.
Bye.
Blessings.
Peace,
Continued
everyone.
success. Good luck.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Okay,
Peace,
bye.